No, no worries.
I'm waiting for
Okay.
Is that what you're gonna do right there?
Yeah. Hey, y'all. Water Cooler Wednesday. Dave Schwartz here from Fan of SC. I'm joined in just a second by David Hux from MyrtleBeachSC.com. It is that time of the week again, Water Cooler Wednesday. Unfortunately, Seth is not with us today. He is on administrative leave again up in Greenville. So, Seth, hope you're enjoying your time there. Let's get right to it. As David is sharing our post here, we'll jump right in, y'all. We are on site here on what is currently the South Carolina State Route 319 here in Horry County, just off of 22. We're right in front of Skip Southern Express, a little corner store here. But this is the proposed route of Interstate 73, and the largest, one of the biggest pet projects in the entire state of South Carolina. We just want to make sure we're still going live there. And David, a contentious pet project to say the least. But let's get right to it. The report that came out late last week on Interstate 73 and the amount of spending that is going on. State taxpayers, y'all, we have spent $77 million.
$77 million.
On a road that does not exist. Interstate 73, and we're going to get to kind of giving you the 360 view here in a minute. But David, I wanted to get right in this report by The Nerve. Rick Bundrett, the reporter there. $77 million of taxpayer money has been spent on this pet project, this unnecessary pet project right here on the coast, Interstate 73, I-73. This road doesn't even exist.
Correct.
David, 8 million of that 77, they can't even account for. They don't even know where it is. They've been questioned several times about it, and they can't find it. They lost $8 million of our dollars.
They don't know where it's gone.
Also in the report, 2.8 million of that 77 million on a road that doesn't exist, an unnecessary pet project, has gone to the real estate business partner of the most powerful, most corrupt politician in the state, corrupt Hugh Leatherman. $2.8 million given to a guy named Reynolds Williams, David, who you are familiar with.
Right.
To go buy up land, to basically, you know, through eminent domain, through the government coercion, buying up these properties where 73 is going to run through, the right-of-ways.
Right.
Okay, so just to circle them back, $77 million of taxpayer money, our money, has gone to DOT for an unnecessary pet project that doesn't even exist. And oh, by the way, did we mention that where we are standing right now was underwater?
Exactly.
Not navigable. You could not drive on this road.
Right.
Because of Hurricane Florence last year.
Yes.
It was completely flooded. So, David, we spent a fortune. I mean, $77 million is a lot of money. Even in government terms, even in road terms, $77 million could do a hell of a lot to fix our roads in this state.
Correct.
And we have spent it on a road that doesn't exist, and the beneficiaries have been, business partners of corrupt Hugh Leatherman. Right. They've become millionaires. I mean, they were millionaires, I'm sure.
They're already millionaires.
But millionaire again, $2.8 million. And so, y'all, when we talk about pet projects, when we talk about how your roads aren't getting fixed, when we talk about they're not spending the money in the right places, when we talk about politicians and their buddies and lobbyists getting rich on our backs, David, this story hits all of those buttons.
Correct.
And all for a road that does not exist, and quite frankly, that very few people want.
Yeah, if you see the truck behind us here, and I'm going to make a point of this. I went to the Horry County Council meeting last night. John Hardee, A.O. Hardee and Sons, you're going to see these trucks driving up and down the road here. They're all A.O. Hardee and Sons trucks. John Hardee, good friend of Hugh Leatherman's, might have heard the name John Hardee somewhere, family. So he gets up last night and he says this: "A shovel in the ground is money in the bank." Well, if you've got these government contracts, through Hugh Leatherman and all those for this I-73.
Yeah, money in the bank for him.
Money in the bank for you, Benji.
Money out the door for us.
And we're going to be putting up a story on old Benji today. Most people don't know him. He was there last night with Mike Wooten, former SCDOT commissioner, and Tony Cox. All the bigwigs were there. Benji Hardee paid for his entire staff to come sit and lobby the place for the projects he wants. One of which he wants is this road. He wants this to be a 6-lane road. He wants to be I-73. And he's pulling off now. We've already spent $77 million in what God knows what for a road that does not exist. It doesn't need to exist.
Let's talk about that for a second, because we're surrounded. I mean, right now we're at a little country corner store, and see if we can't turn it around. You can see there's old Skip Southern Express, been there for a long time.
Been there since the 70s.
Okay, we've got some homes behind us. We've got homes all around us. And David, we talk about it all the time, a very sensitive issue here in the state of South Carolina, which is land, which is property rights.
Right.
And there is no doubt that most of that money, and in fact, the NERV identified that $2.8 million that went to Reynolds Williams, corrupt Hugh Leatherman's buddy, was for buying up land. And undoubtedly, they're going to want to condemn these properties. They're going to want to coerce these property owners into giving their property and selling it at a cut rate to the government. You know, that's called eminent domain, folks. That is inevitable. That is going to happen. So you're looking around at these properties here behind us on this 2-lane country road that we're currently on. Y'all, they're going to be gone, David. They're going to be gone because the government is going to come in and take them for a road that doesn't need to exist.
So I brought Dave here. I didn't tell him a little secret. I'm going to tell you guys. Skip's over here used to be called Hux's Grocery. It's what it was called in the 70s, 80s. Most of you know it as Hux's Grocery. Folks, this is Hux country. The Huxes don't want this road. It's going to divide their community. Kids that are currently going to certain schools are going to suddenly go to other schools. The community here throughout, all the way down to where Marion County hooks up, does not want this road.
Back.
Apologies.
Oh, sorry about that. So, David, again, we're right here on the proposed site of
future I-73,
the biggest pet projects in the state, Interstate 73 here on the coast. And you know, we were talking about how these properties around us are undoubtedly going to be condemned. Undoubtedly, the government is going to use eminent domain.
They will.
To take these folks' land, to take this property at a cut rate, force them to basically coerce them into, you know, giving them land, their land at a cut rate, to build this road that again, very few people want.
Right.
Like you said, a contractor who is undoubtedly going to make money off of building the interstate wants it. Lobbyists who are going to make money on this want it. Politicians like corrupt Hugh Leatherman who are going to make money off of it, who already are making money off of it undoubtedly, are going to want it. So it's very few people that actually think this road is worthy of building. Only the people that are going to make money on it.
Right.
Meanwhile, we get screwed because we're going to be paying for it. We're continue to pay for it, by the way, $77 million worth. So,
well, that's the other thing. The way it's currently proposed, county residents right here are going to pay for the biggest 70–80% of this road is going to be paid for by county residents. A road the tourism lobby wants, that Benji Hardee wants, that Mike Wooten wants, that Tony Cox wants, that the CCAR, the Coastal Carolina Association of Realtors wants, that the Myrtle Beach Area Chamber of Commerce wants. These guys aren't screaming for this road.
Yeah.
They don't want it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and look, the citizens of the county, the citizens of the state do not want this.
Right.
They want their roads fixed. They want their bridges repaired, right? The roads and bridges they use every single day to get to work, to drop the kids off at school, to get to church, right? Those are the roads that the politicians promised to fix when they passed the largest gas tax hike in state history.
Right.
And those are the roads are getting neglected. Instead, what they're doing is they're putting money behind these pet projects like I-73. And again, David, that NERV report, I go back to it, it was so astounding that $77 million of taxpayer funds, our money, instead of fixing the roads that we know are broken,
right,
instead of fixing those bridges and that infrastructure that we know needs to be fixed that the politicians promised to fix. Instead, it's going to a road that literally does not even exist, and it's making politicians and their buddies and the lobbyists rich, all on our dime. And David, we have got to continue to keep the pressure on.
Yeah, and if you guys think that 1.8 to 2.4 billion, which is the price tag they're pushing, is the price tag, know this: they've already wasted 77 million, and we don't know where they spent it.
Yeah. On
this fictitious road.
No, that's absolutely right. And so, if y'all at home watching and you're sick and tired of your roads looking like a moonwalk, and you're sick and tired of driving over potholes, and you're sick and tired of driving over dangerous bridges, and you're sick and tired of listening and hearing about and watching these pet projects that the politicians and the lobbyists want so they can get rich on our backs on, if you're sick and tired of that, text the word pothole to the number 52886, pothole, P-O-T-H-O-L-E, to the number 52886 on your cell phone, and that will send a direct message to your state politicians that control SCDOT, sending them a message, asking them, demanding answers on when your roads, your specific roads, are going to get fixed. David, let's turn, we were talking a little bit about the county council meeting last night.
Whew.
So some good news, some bad news, but let's start with the good news.
Well, here's the good news. I spoke with a local resident, many of you know him, Drexel Drew, this morning. Drexel, yourself, Dave, Chad Caton, and thousands of county residents called in to Dennis D. Sabato, Harold Worley, all these councilmen, saying this: you're trying to pass and draft a ban, a discharge ban on my firearm out here in the country and in certain areas. We don't want it.
Restricting our rights.
Yeah, we don't want it. You had a call to action 2 weeks ago. Was it 2 weeks ago or 3?
Yep.
Several weeks ago, you had a call to action. Hundreds of you, and overall thousands of you, texted, phoned, emailed your county councilman. And last night, Dennis D. Sabato said, I've heard from all of the people in the county, and it's clear you don't want this ban.
Well, look, the credit again, a clear infringement on our rights. And by the way, I love how they wrote this thing. They wrote these bills like they always do. They wrote, this is not an infringement on your Second Amendment right.
Right.
But it is.
You can't fire your gun, but that's not an infringement on your rights.
That's right. So I love that, but the kudos and the credit really goes to, as you mentioned, the local citizens on the ground here in Horry County.
Thousands of
activists that showed up to these meetings, week in, week out, that do not let weather disturbances deter them from taking action and having their voice heard. But y'all, it was cool to watch. It was cool to hear about. In fact, I think somebody told me that a couple D. Sabato, who, by the way, I mean, a complete joker, right? I mean, this guy, to try to restrict your gun rights, especially, David, with everything that's going on across the country, right? I mean, we're not in a vacuum here, folks, in Horry County or in the state of South Carolina. I mean, we now more than ever, we need the right to defend ourselves. We need our politicians to protect that right to defend ourselves, that Second Amendment right. And so for D. Sabato, who, by the way, identifies himself as a Republican, if I'm not mistaken.
He says he's one.
A Rhino at that. But D. Sabato, and by the way, D. Sabato, a guy who ran for the State House twice and got defeated in the primary. So he's one of those guys, one of those politicians that he just wants the name, he wants the honor, he wants the power. But for him to say to another councilman, if I ever try to bring up guns again, shoot me.
Because he got the message.
He got the message from y'all.
You guys called him. You guys texted him. You guys emailed him. Listen, that guy got the message.
Yeah.
He now knows the Horry County he represents better than he did.
Yes. And that's the goal here, and that should be the goal of all citizens, is to change these politicians' behavior, right? Elections in and out, come and go. Some guys, some folks, they campaign on the issues that you want to hear about. They tell you what you want to hear during election time. And then when they get into office, they do the exact opposite, right? We've seen that time and time again. But David, what we want as citizens is we want them to vote and behave right. We want them to vote and behave in recognition of our rights, in recognition of the United States Constitution, right? We want them to behave properly. That's the goal here.
We want them to represent us. And by us, I don't mean David Hucks or Dave Schwartz. I mean Horry County residents.
Right.
We want resident, responsive, resident-serving representatives. And if you're not that, get out.
Yeah.
Get out.
Yeah, and last night was another great moment for y'all. And by the way, kudos to you for reporting on this immediately. I think you, MyrtleBeachSC.com, getting the word out that this happened is a huge, I mean, it is a huge service to the citizens of Horry County. You literally just printed the thing word for word on your website.
I did. We did it again today. We just showed the document.
But you let folks know that this was happening and that their rights were being infringed, and that sent the alarm out to, to us, to our activists, to so many folks in Horry County, and that was. I think that was just you're underrated in this, but MyrtleBeachSC.com played an important role in getting that word out.
I had a resident call me this morning. He said, "You're kind of like the Paul Revere of local news. The politicians are coming. The politicians are coming.
Right.
When we find out something like this, guys, we're gonna let you know. No, we're not gonna let them take away your rights without a fight. We're just and listen, the fight is really yours. We're just gonna make you aware the fight's coming, and then you guys obviously respond. Yeah. They heard you guys loud and clear.
It was a great thing to see and to hear, and I'm glad that y'all did the right thing. You put that pressure on. You confronted these politicians, and again, I mean, this man D. Sabato, this councilman, he identifies as a Republican. I mean, and so this whole well, if he's a Democrat, this, and if he's a Republican, he can do no wrong. That's just that's a great way to get your rights taken from you.
Well, let me just call it like it is.
This was important.
Let me call it like it is. The man identifies as a Republican to get elected.
Right.
He knows it's a Republican county. He knows he's got to be a Republican to win. Everybody who does that, Luke Rankin, Alan Clemens, Russell Fry, Stephen Goldfinch, they're not necessarily Republicans. They're just putting the name behind their name they believe is necessary to win the primaries.
They're doing it to get reelected.
They are.
Classic Rhino, Republican in name only move. They're not conservative. And D. Sabato, I mean, that clown, he learned a lesson last night. He learned a lesson that he'll probably never forget for the remainder of his time on the council, is that, Horry County, just like the state of South Carolina, y'all, we're conservative. The citizens of this state, the citizens of this county are conservative.
We are.
We are. We cherish our constitutional rights. And when you infringe on them, when you try to put that camel's nose under the tent, y'all, we're going to bite back, and we're going to bite back hard. And that's what happened last night. But David, just as important too, the lesson here learned is on the national debate, right? And the statewide debate. You've got state politicians, Lindsey Graham, right, who's trying to pass this red flag gun confiscation law. You've got state senators and state representatives that also want to pass red flag gun confiscation laws. State representatives, very powerful state politicians that will not fully recognize and restore your gun rights and pass constitutional carry in this state like most citizens of the state want. And it's because they don't believe that we have that right to defend ourselves. They don't believe that the citizens are going to stand up and demand it. They think they can get away with it. And so again, last night, a great lesson learned and a great kind of takeaway for the activists.
It was a victory. It was a victory for you guys.
Yes.
What you see behind us, this is rural Horry County. I'm from rural Horry County, and I can tell you this. This is not an anomaly. This is who we are. This is what we do. Don't think, if you get elected in office and you suddenly get all infatuated with the liberal little bubble you might be circling in.
The lobbyists in the bureaucrat bubble, David?
Yeah. The A.O. Hardee, Mike Wooten, Tony Cox bubble, Chamber of Commerce, CCAR bubble. Don't forget, these are the people who vote right here.
Well, and I'll tell you, and Janelle writes, stop feeding the rhinos. The rhinos didn't get fed last night.
That's for sure. Way. We cut it off.
Yeah, they got a little snapback. But David, let me also say this. What was also instructive from your article this morning about this hearing, the gun rights hearing last night, the gun control hearing, was that even the council members that probably were for this thing, for them to say, well, maybe we need to enforce the laws that are already on the books. And there's a perfectly good law on the books, right, for reckless shooting, as there are in most counties.
What an idea.
And, that there is a penalty for running around and acting like a jackass with your firearm.
Correct.
There's already a law on the books for that. And the council member was like, hey, you know, maybe I need to talk to the police, the chief of police about this to start enforcing the law.
Wow.
And David, it goes back to a point that Seth made when we were talking before the video today was, you know what? If these council members stop trying to funnel off tax dollars to build this stupid pet project, Interstate 73, and actually put it behind public safety and the police, maybe that law could be better enforced than it is right now.
Chad Caton hit it on the nail last night. He said the following: we're building these homes in the swamp and we're growing ourselves into a corner. I couldn't have said that better. We're growing at 24%. We haven't hired enough police because we can't hire enough because we're growing too fast. We haven't hired enough firemen. We don't have enough infrastructure. And here's the situation. They're not making these developers pay for this stuff with impact fees. So here's what's happening. Someone shoots off a gun, we don't have enough cops to go.
Well, and not only that, they're, again, going back, they're funneling this money to this pet project that we're, you know,
it's
on the
crazy.
side of here
It's
that doesn't even exist yet.
Insanity.
$25 million a year, y'all, in just from the county of Horry County,
right,
is going to try to fund this project, this pet project here.
But I want to make this clear. We had Mike Wooten, former SCDOT commissioner, Tony Cox, current SCDOT commissioner, and Benji Hardee at that meeting last night. These guys support two things: this road, and anywhere a development wants to be built, they want it built.
Yeah.
And let me say this: those issues are going to be the key issues next June, all throughout the spring in the 2020 elections.
Yeah.
Hey, these residents are mad as all get out. And I'm going to say this to you, councilmen. You follow Mike Wooten, you follow Benji Hardee, you follow Tony Cox down that rabbit hole. Harold Worley said it correctly last night. You will be voted out. You'll be gone.
And again, if you're funneling money to a unnecessary pet project at the expense of public safety, at the expense of existing roads and bridges, then you deserve to lose, because you have broken your promise with the voters. You have broken your promise with the residents. And David, I just want to make sure too, I mean, we've got an audience here that's around the state that watches this show every Wednesday. And this isn't just in Horry County.
Oh God, it's statewide.
We hear in Berkeley County, we hear these, you know, the same thing. And I know Tom's watching. We hear this in Pickens County. I know Janelle's watching. I deal with it in Charleston County, right? It's this constant flow of money to these special interests, to the lobbyists, to the politicians' pet projects, at the expense of our roads, our schools, you know, all of our infrastructure.
It's like one of my readers told me yesterday. SC, and the C stands for collusion.
Yeah.
He said the S and the C, state collusion. He said it's statewide collusion, and that's what we've got going on here. And listen, residents are the only hope we have.
No, that's
statewide
right.
residents are the only hope we have for SC, statewide collusion.
It's y'all's government, and it's up to you to take control of it. We're going to give you the facts. We're going to give you the leverage points. We're going to tell you where you need to go and what you need to do. But quite frankly, y'all, nobody in the State House gives a lick about what Dave Schwartz and Fan of SC thinks. Nobody gives a lick in the State House about what MyrtleBeachSC.com thinks. But they do care about what you think, because you're the ones that vote, that are the voters. You're the ones that put them in every year, and you're the ones that can yank them out when they don't behave properly. And I got to tell you, for the first time in a long time, I do feel like, hey, we're starting to get through to these folks.
Because you're doing it.
That's right. And there's an active base that is out there, and you saw it on display last night at the county council meeting. David,
that place was packed. There was an overflow room. It was packed.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, like, that was amazing to me too. Was last night you had over what 300-400 people
easy
in that county council meeting, y'all. In Horry County, you had 300-400 people, and most of those people were folks that were just regular citizens that wanted to come and have their voice heard on the gun issue, on the development issue, and that is the main thing I believe that spooks these politicians.
It does.
Is
they hear
when you're up close and personal to them, when you confront them in person, there is nothing more powerful than that. There really is.
Well, I'll repeat what I said last night. this morning, earlier, before we went off. Benji Hardee, who is the big government contractor, good friends with Hugh Leatherman, good friends with Mr. Important got up. They brought up their big guns. He paid all of his employees to be there. Sadly for him, the seats were largely taken by residents.
Yeah.
His people had to sit in the overflow, a lot of them. He got some in there, but he was paying them to be there. That's a Soros moment. But let me just say this to you. He said a shovel in the ground is money in the bank. Yeah, for a big contractor like you with all your inside collusive connections, Benji, it is.
Yeah.
But for the average resident, we want our quality of life to matter. Those folks that got up last night and talked about their flood homes and how these big developments were being built and the drainage was running onto their older home and flooding their home out every time it rained, we're not putting up with that anymore.
Well,
we're
look,
not.
And that's the thing with I-73, with Interstate 73, it's the citizens aren't demanding this. You can see, I mean, if y'all have been just watching for the last 10, 15 minutes, there aren't that many cars on this road. This is a 2-lane country road. We're right at a country corner store over here. You know, it skips Southern Express. But, y'all, we don't need this interstate. It's not necessary. It is not necessary. It will not make evacuations from hurricanes safer.
It'll flood. It will flood.
It will not reduce traffic. But what it is doing is sucking money that should be going to that should be going to fixing the roads and the bridges we already got that are dangerous, and it is sucking money away locally, especially from public safety, from fire, cops. You know, they're not getting the resources they need because these politicians are more worried about building this pet project to please these lobbyists and these politicians. David, one last thing. Let's kick it over. Surfside Beach. Speaking of citizens standing up and, as you called it, the resident revolution.
It is.
What's going on? Give us the latest.
What happened was last year, a collusive government, Surfside Beach government, 4 members, Bob Childs, Randall Stevens, Ron Ott, Mark Johnson. Mark Johnson wasn't part of the cabal, but they got in with this one developer, threw out all the rules, killed everyone's CRS rating. Planning and zoning called them on it when they fired everyone on planning and zoning and they put their own lackey bunch in there. The only one they kept was Bob Hellyer because he threatened to sue. But long story short is this. After they fired everybody, now they're going to rewrite the entire E-district for this guy with their own planning and zoning commission. They cut back council meetings to 1 a month. They're limiting anyone from the town's input on anything. So the residents got together and they've encouraged people like Bob Hellyer to run for mayor, Cindy Keating to run for town council, Michael Drake to run for town council. I can promise you this, it's very likely there's going to be a change election in Surfside Beach, not because better candidates showed up, because these are great candidates, but because resident-focused candidates showed up, and residents have had enough. These candidates are better because they'll work for the residents and not the special interests.
Look, you know, Surfside Beach, small town, right, you know, on the coast here, but indicative of what's going on across the state and these other counties where you're getting this awakening from citizens and these politicians are shutting us out, right? They're shutting us out. They're trying to cut us off from, you know, they're taking our money and they're doing whatever they want with it that benefits them. As we mentioned before with this pet project, I-73, I mean, you got corrupt Hugh Leatherman's real estate business partner making $2.8 million off a road that doesn't even built yet. But bottom line, David, is that folks are waking up and they're starting to fight back and they're starting to demand answers and they're starting to knock down these barriers that have been put in front of them.
Right now, none of these guys are running for re-election. You do realize that, right? All the guys who are up for re-election.
And by the way, that's the best solution, right?
That's a good tale.
It saves us time and money from having to go through campaigns that are expensive, reaching out to all these. Hey, if we can get them to quit, that's the best option available.
But what the corporate leaders of that town, and this town's been a corporate town for 40, 50 years, what they're excited about is they're saying, well, these guys are all angry, the residents are all angry, they're these people. Listen, to you guys with your big corporate dollars, to the CCAR, they may look angry to you now, but what these guys are getting is determined. They're not angry, they just want good government. And good government is government that represents the residents of a town, not you guys. So hey, you can do your endorsements, you can spend your PAC monies, I'm sure CCR is going to drop 30, 40,000 on this election. Probably the chamber is going to drop a bunch as well. The residents are going to decide this election, not you.
Not the politicians and the lobbyists.
The lobbyists will not, the corporatists and the lobbyists will not win the Surfside Beach election. If you think you're going to win that, you're wrong.
Well, y'all, we're going to cut it off here. Sorry about the technical difficulties in the beginning.
We're in the country, y'all.
Yep, no, we were, but David, one last thing. We're going to be back next Wednesday at noon right here. I promise we'll have the internet taken care of. Thursday, tomorrow, y'all, SCDOT Commission meets, and we've been talking about this for a couple weeks. They could potentially vote tomorrow to rip down the signs, John Hardee, named after the roads.
Did I mention Benji Hardee, the Hardee boys?
And rename the roads that are currently named for that admitted federal felon, corrupt Hugh Leatherman's son-in-law, disgraced former SCDOT Commissioner John Hardee. David, right up the road here, the John N. Hardee Highway, right outside of Loris. You got the John N. Hardee Expressway in Columbia, the road that connects I-26 to the airport there in Columbia. They can rip these signs down and bring some dignity back to South Carolina.
To our state.
But it's time also that we stop these ridiculous laws about naming roads after politicians. And I get it, we've talked about this before. It seems symbolic, y'all, right? I mean, what's a road sign? Well, number one, I don't want my roads named after felons. I don't want my roads being named after somebody that went out and bought a hooker, okay? And I just don't. It's embarrassing. The second thing is, every time, John Hardee, and David, you know this, he served over 2 decades. He was on that DOT commission.
Couldn't get him off. We fought to get him off. We couldn't get him off.
Well, we eventually did.
Right, eventually.
Eventually, McMaster had to fire him when we put public pressure on him. But he'd been on that DOT commission for 20 years, y'all. Now, his father-in-law, of course, corrupt Hugh Leatherman, put him on there, undoubtedly to funnel money in their direction. But here you had this guy was there for 20 years. David, in the last 20 years is really when we've seen an escalation of the destruction of our road system.
No question.
Potholes, bridges falling apart, roads that are like driving on the surface of the moon.
Santee Cooper, I mean, I could go on and on.
John Hardee was on the commission when he oversaw all of that destruction. He let that happen intentionally because the only reason he was on that commission was to enrich himself and his family. That's it.
Right.
And so that sign is more than just any old road sign. It's a symbol that citizens are taking control of their government again. And this commission, this DOT needs to acknowledge that. They need to rip down that sign. Y'all, if you want to make sure your politicians demand that their appointees on that commission rip down the signs and rename those roads and get rid of John Hardee once and for all, and change the law finally to ban these naming of these roads after politicians, text the word RIP, as in rip down those signs, RIP, to the number 52886 on your cell phone, RIP, to the number 52886 on your cell phone, and that will send a quick message to your state legislators and the governor, the folks who appoint the DOT commission that control that DOT, to demand that their appointees on that commission rip down that sign, rename that highway, and that they finally pass a law banning naming roads after politicians and bureaucrats.
Right. Because they want to make these guys heroes. You're the heroes of this state.
That's right.
You're the heroes of this state.
And we talk about, y'all, if you want to name roads after anybody, name it after veterans. Name it after folks that died so that we could have our constitutional rights. Name it after police officers, fallen firefighters, right? I was on the radio the other day. I was talking about there's a Vietnam Veterans Memorial down in Mount Pleasant right by me. Y'all, there are literally hundreds of names of men that gave their lives to this country. I'll take the politicians down there with me anytime. We'll go down there, pick any one of those names, and rename the John Hardee Expressway after one of those guys that fought and gave their lives so that we could have freedom.
Let me be clear.
And the bottom line is that needs to change. Text the word RIP, as in rip the sign down, RIP to the number 52886, RIP to the number 52886 on your cell phone.
So, what you're saying is, roads like one we have in Myrtle Beach called Brad Dean Way, corrupt former Chamber of Commerce CEO, Brad Dean, funneling millions of dollars to his buddies. You don't want roads named after people like that. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
I got it.
Yeah,
got it.
That's correct. So, And Eva just wrote back to us. She said, look, I did the text. Senator Greg Hembry got back to me and told me that he agreed with 100%. That's great that he agrees. And I'm sure you'll get the same response a lot from your politicians. We don't want them to agree. We want them to call their commissioner. We want Greg Hembry to call up Tony Cox and say, Tony, you better vote to take that sign down immediately. At the next DOT commission, you better vote to take that sign down. Just text the word RIP to 52886 on your cell phone. Y'all, we'll be back next Wednesday. Apologize for the earlier technical difficulties. Right here, facebook.com/fan of SC, facebook.com/fan of SC, Wednesday at noon for Water Cooler Wednesday. Dave and David signing off. Thank y'all.
Hey, Seth.
Stay vigilant. Seth, get back off administrative leave for us.
All right, man.